Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Monday Q&As. So let's knock this out. First question. When you're feeling awful, illness, exhaustion, etc., and you're really flagging during training, do you just go as far as you can and call it quits? Or do you pace yourself and get the full workout just over a longer period of time? Also, are there any physical downsides to training while ill, assuming you can safely train while doing so? There can be potential downsides. Yeah, if you're very sick or you're recovering from an injury or a pull or something, training can impede your recovery from those things. So it's probably not the best if you're legitimately sick with something like the flu or whatever. Minor colds, a little run down, I would generally recommend you just kind of pace yourself a bit and play it by ear. Go in and see how things go. Because sometimes your body will lie to you. You don't feel like training. You don't feel up to it. You go in and you hit some amazing lifts. Everything goes fantastic once you get in your zone. But other times you go there and you go in and you start to flounder once you start training and your lifts are really way down. You're weak. Usually if that happens, I recommend you just go ahead and go home early and don't bother. So don't let feeling run down or being a little tired or a cold stop you from going in and seeing how you do and just assessing it. And actually seeing how you perform on the lifts, determine it. You should see how you actually do. And if you're floundering once you get into it, then go ahead and end the session and go home. If you're really, really sick, obviously the flu or anything that severe or higher, you should stay home. If for no other reason, even not just your recovery, but the fact that you've got something that's very contagious and can put other people out of work and cause people problems in their own lives. And if you have the flu or something, you shouldn't be out and about just due to being contagious. And I would argue that even companies that make people come in who have the flu and work are putting all of their employees at danger, and that should be against company policy to even allow that to happen. And you definitely shouldn't be going to a gym or a recreational place when you've got the flu knowing it's contagious. So there's all those factors to consider, but you have to just play it by ear. Don't play it by how you feel before you get there and actually start lifting. Just get in there and start lifting and see how you actually do before you decide if you're going to pace a workout, go hard, or go home. All right, next question. Upright rows, your opinion on them. Why you don't do them? Are they useless? How to do them correctly? You know, the thing with upright rows, I don't feel they're useless. I feel they're potentially dangerous, potentially injuring, but as far as being a good muscle builder, they're fantastic for building. You're working multiple muscles of the entire shoulder structure, even a little bit bicep and forearm, not a lot, but a little bit. You're working all three heads of the delt to some extent, the traps. A lot of muscles are getting worked very effectively with the upright row. The issue is the position it puts the hands in and the stress that puts on the shoulders. I've told people when they do side laterals and things, the thumb needs to be up, not this pinky's up stuff. Well, you got the pinky up thing going there with the upright rows. So what I'm going to recommend, assess if you even need them or not in your program. There are other exercises that can do all the same things. Assess if you need them. Don't do them really high. The bottom half of the movement's all you need. Don't really bring the bar higher than about your nipple line, lower chest. No point going any higher than that if you don't want to put additional stress on your shoulder joints. And if you ever start feeling pain in your shoulder joints when doing them or the rotator cuff, cut them out of your routine. They're not for you. Don't do them. Just cut them out. So that's really the way to look at an exercise like that, of understand the risks of it, and if it seems to be a real problem for you, cut it out immediately, cut it out forever, because it is a high-risk exercise. Limit that range of motion to the safest range of motion, but assess if you really need them or not in your program. There might be other exercises that can do everything they can do for you safer, but it's not to say they're a bad exercise as long as you don't ever get an injury and they can be done safely for you as an individual. It will put a good amount of size on you. They're a good exercise just for overall shoulder development. Very good, very efficient for that. Just be aware of the risks. All right, next question. Hey Jason, what do you suggest are the best ab exercises? Charles Polquin suggests that squats, deadlifts, and chin-ups are enough. What is your take? Those things contribute tremendously. All of those big, heavy compounds. Are they enough for every person? can't always say. A lot of people, if not most people, would probably benefit from some additional core work. I've discussed in the past for you guys what sort of core work to do. Weighted planks, weighted short range of motion crunches. You don't need to do real long range of motion ever for your core and your abs. In addition to not just doing your compounds, you could do variations of the compounds to put more stress on your core and stabilizers, like heavy squat lockouts inside of a rack using heavier than your max to really load the core up for extra stability. There's a lot of things that you can do there, but it's got to be assessed by the individual. If you don't have any issues with your core stability on all your big lifts and they keep going up and it doesn't seem to be an issue, you may not need any additional core work. Just like with any other accessory movement, that has to be assessed on a case-by-case basis. So it depends on the person, whereas there are other people who need quite a bit. Now, I historically have done quite a bit of core work in videos. I've reached a point with my own training philosophy where I don't really need it anymore, but I feel that I did need it for quite a while. So like with any other accessory, base it upon, do you see signs that you need it or not? Is it a lagging area for you in terms of strength and development for your overall goals and performance? So accessory work like that should always be looked at for the individual. Don't just go with just blanket rules for everybody. Not a good idea. All right, next question. Dear Jason, is there any problem with doing fasted weight training for drug-free lifters? It happened to me. If I love IF, and doing fasted training actually gives me more strength and better performance. Yet people like Alan Aragon says it's a bad thing for muscle growth, but I would take this into account since my performance improves after fasting for easily 13 to 14 hours. How much of less muscle growth can that be? You may not be able to really assess if it's increasing your performance. Not to say that you're going to be stronger and perform better fast. It doesn't make any sense biologically. There's some other psychological factor going on there for you. You just have to accept that. There's no way it's going to make you stronger. It's the issue of, can you get away with it? Cutting? Probably so. Cutting, I mean, I like to train fasted when cutting oftentimes, but I get to certain phases where that doesn't even work for me anymore. I got away with that for a while. Even the bulking, when I was earlier on in my rebuilding, I started messing with the fasting, and I did really well for a while, but I eventually reached a wall where my strength and performance levels reached a point where I do need a little bit of carbs pre-workout or some protein when I was doing lower carbs in order to get a good workout in. So it really is going to depend upon that, but I would say once you start getting a little more advanced, trying to gain muscle while doing fasted training is far from ideal. And you could look at it from the perspective of, maybe it isn't hurting you. It's not a way, there's no way it's going to benefit you, but it might be hurting you, it might not. So you have to assess for yourself whatever benefits you think you're getting out of it. Are they worth the risk that it's impeding your performance and your gains just a little bit? And if you're seeing improved performance from lifting fasted, then you probably need to assess what other psychological factors are going on there, because there's no reason why that would actually be, unless you're comparing only fasted to really big meals that bloat you and send a lot of blood to your GI tract to digest it, in which case that could be reducing performance a bit. But having a small meal with a bit of carbs in it and not a massive amount of fiber or fat or anything like that that's going to weigh your stomach down shouldn't be reducing performance. If anything, it should boost it or do nothing for you. So you shouldn't be able to perform better when fasted unless you're comparing to very bloated and full where you're overeating first. All right, next question. Thoughts on getting a large portion of your daily fiber from bran, flakes, fiber fortified cereals. I usually get up to 50% of mine from them. You've said in the past you don't like fiber supplements, but not sure if this counts. I really don't like fiber supplements because it leaves the potential for phytonutrient and vitamin and mineral deficiencies, but particularly those phytonutrients. But getting a lot of it from fortified cereals is probably okay as long as that isn't your only source. If you're still getting another 20 or 30 grams, at least 20 grams from other whole foods is probably not a big deal. But if you're on a really low fiber diet and you're only using the fortified ones, it's probably not ideal. You're probably going to get some phytonutrient deficiencies, and it's just not the perfect scenario. But as far as the bran flakes and other higher fiber cereals, for up to 50%, as long as you're getting enough total fiber, I don't see it as an issue. And it can be helpful for cutting. A lot of people, the satiety of like those bran flakes and things when you're trying to limit total food intake can be a useful tool for you. And if you're worried about getting nutrition, if you're doing that, then just throw in some extra green veggies and you'll probably be okay there. So it's not a big deal unless you really are having a deficient diet. And outside of that, it's fine. A bit of extra fiber just from those foods, though, if you're getting a fair, reasonable amount overall, perfectly fine. It can be good for satiety. All right, next question. In your opinion, can someone get stronger in a slight calorie deficit, lose fat, get stronger, or maintain strength? I don't like yes or no questions when we're talking about things that are really sliding scales, because that's actually what the answer to this is. The answer is both yes and no. And what I mean is, the more advanced you are as a lifter, and the stronger and the bigger that you are compared to where you started or towards your potential, the more and more difficult it will become for you to gain strength or performance while in a calorie deficit. So that is one factor that's a sliding scale. Okay, starts up here that it's really easy when you start out, and the more advanced you get, the less and less you can expect to actually get out of your potential, and maybe even lose potential performance as a result of trying to be in any deficit. So you've got the experience and how far you are as an element. Another sliding scale is going to be how big your calorie deficit is. The larger your calorie deficit, the smaller the chance you're going to be able to gain performance. So there's an inverse relationship between those two. So that's another factor that is a sliding scale. The larger your calorie deficit and the faster you're losing weight, the more difficult it will be to gain performance. Number 3, the third big variable. And this is all just assuming no drugs are in the mix. That's another variable in and of itself. We won't even get into that on this one. But another variable would be how fat you are. The leaner you are, the more difficult it will be to gain performance while losing body fat and in a calorie deficit. The fatter you are, the easier it will be. So we have 3 different variables that will affect how probable and how difficult it is to do this. So how do we determine a yes or no question? Well, you've got to base it upon the whole total combination of those 3 big variables, which makes this a far more complicated question than you're looking for. People wanted a simple yes or no. Well, this is not a simple yes or no. There's 3 different variables that all or independently will impact if this is possible or not for you, how possible it is, and how difficult it will be. And all 3 of them have to be considered. So, and it's a sliding scale, not even a set number. All right, next question. How to fix minor shoulder impingement. I know you're not a doctor, but any general rules? The general rules is you need to go see a doctor, because something like a shoulder impingement might not be repairable or fixable in any way without surgery, a doctor cutting you open and going in there and fixing the problem. So if you're not a surgeon, I'm not a surgeon, you can't perform surgery on yourself under anesthesia with a scope and go in and fix it, you're going to need a doctor. Pretty simple. And at the very least, with some sort of shoulder impingement that could possibly be rehabilitated, you're not a physical therapist. I couldn't give you, even if I was, proper assessment for that, because I haven't assessed your individual impingement to even tell you if there's anything you can do physical therapy wise and specifically what it should be. So in that case, you need to see a physical therapist. There's no way you're going to get any general rules for this until it's been officially and independently assessed by a true expert, and they can assess what's going on with your problem. Until that's done, nobody can help you. All right, last question in part 1. Who has a bigger butt, you or Candido? All right, guys, now we've seen videos of both of us, and I think it's pretty clear that while Candido does have the squat booty, he's got the glutes for the sleuts. His butt doesn't have anything on mine. I could easily fit Johnny's entire butt into just one of my butt cheeks, and probably have a little bit of space to spare. So in all honesty, I am the glute master, I am the booty master of YouTube fitness, and I find this question a little bit insulting that anyone would even need to ask this. And I'm not taking anything away from Candido's butt and glute development, but he's not on my level there. He might out squat me. He might be a better power lifter than me. Okay, he's not even a might there. But he is not on my level in the butt department. Not even close. All right, guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.